Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Tēnā koe. Mr Chairman, I start with the title, the Support for Children in Hardship Bill, and like other colleagues, I want to refer to the word hardship within the bill, because over the course of the debate, that has become interchanged with poverty, deprivation, and other words that indicate that our children are actually suffering. However, what has failed to occur in all of the debate is actually some measure of that, or some definition around what hardship might actually look like. It would appear that hardship only occurs to the 18,000 or so children that are going to be impacted by this particular bill, and that of course is not the case when we consider the 300,000 odd children who are living in poverty, which no one is disputing in any part of the House. So calling the bill Support for Children in Hardship does cause us to consider, should we define hardship? Should it become a measure that we then make some advance to ensure that we can reduce those targets? Because when you're talking about hardship or poverty or deprivation, you cannot ignore the other things that surround the difficult lives that these children have. So perhaps in the title we should be looking at developing words that encourage a suite of responses to these children, such as adequate, warm, dry, affordable housing, such as access to decent education with all the resources that level out the playing field for all of our children so that they have equal opportunity. So I have a problem with the word hardship within the title of the bill. I also have a problem with the word children, because as we know, the bill is more really around the household income as opposed to supporting individual children. We know that the bill will support a family up to $25 a week, but not necessarily the individual children within that family. So your family might have 4 or 5 children and only be able to access the $25 a week. So the children part of the title I have an issue with. I also have a problem with the fact that we have been led to believe that these families will get an extra $25 a week, when we know that it could be anywhere in the region of $17 or $12 or $23, depending on the situation that your family finds itself in. So the government has been trumpeting the fact that they are providing more money into the family, which is great, and we support that. However, the view that's been widely trumpeted is that it will be $25 a week for all families is clearly not the case. The commencement date, Mr Chairman, I have a real problem with. If we are desperate to ensure our families are well resourced, should the commencement date not be the day after which this bill will receive royal assent, and not the 1st of April, would bring a whole lot more families some support when they need it, not to wait for a further 4 or 5 months for that to happen. We could call this bill the complex tax changes, when they should have just passed Labor's bill to increase abatements rate bill, because there are some complicated changes to the Inland Revenue Act, which will change abatement rates, when really if the government was serious about supporting children in hardship, it would have supported Labor's bill, which may have put an extra $50 into the pockets of our families. This bill also should be called the changes to the definition of part-time work and all that that might entail. And of course we know that the definition is moving from 15 hours a week to 20 hours a week. And we're talking about families, probably mostly women, who will be required to go back to work, who will be work tested. And they're likely to go into roles that are a minimum wage or just above, probably quite precarious in their, in terms of being part of 90-day legislation. They will be probably fairly casualised employment. So I have an issue that, Mr. Chairman. Mr.
Porter
Chairman,
Williams.
thank you. I have an issue with us wanting to have long-term sustainable support for children in hardship when we haven't really done the groundwork to ensure that the workplaces and that the types of work and the payment for that work is going to be sustainable for those families long-term, because they will be in a position of less power, being new, potentially new back to the workforce, low-skilled and going into low-paid jobs. I also have concerns for what happens to the children or those families when they're required to be work tested and get back into the workforce, when we are in situations where adequate, good quality and affordable daycare is not available to some of those families. It could be that we're talking about families in rural settings. And I also have a major concern when we are talking about the types of roles which might require shift work or working outside of the normal hours when decent and affordable childcare might be available. So really, in summary, Mr. Chairman, there are some major concerns about the naming of this particular bill. Does it really support children in hardship? How do we define hardship? Is it about the children, or is it about the income that comes into the family? Is it more about the definition of part-time work and the nature of that work and what that might be? Or is it really about providing opportunities for families and parents and children to better themselves? Well, I think not, Mr. Chairman, but I thank you for the opportunity to have this contribution.
I call Sue Moroney.
Thank